Hey, how you doing guys? ZDEyE here. So today I will be going over through The Last of Us Part 2 and I will be providing my review on this game. Now since I have played it through and I've experienced pretty much everything that this game has to offer, I want to mention first of all that I will not be making any kind of these statements regarding outside of the game. For example, the controversies that's going on with the Naughty Dog and the development through this game as well. So no, this is going to be specifically going towards this game alone. That's going to be the whole review about. Also, I definitely needed to touch on regarding the first game, The Last of Us Part 1. I have played it and I have very much enjoyed it too. Now, I am not that big of a fan of the first The Last of Us as well, but the second one, in my personal opinion, does it very well in terms of, well, the gameplay, I should say. Now again, this is going to be full review, so, stick around, listen in. So, first things first, I wanted to mention that regarding the pacing issues that this game tends to have. Because the story is so long, and by the way, it took me about 22 to 23 hours to complete. I have explored every little details and every little areas that you could have actually done it so, and I didn't really miss anything as to my knowledge. But I have taken my time and I played this game on a normal difficulty, and perhaps I should say that as well. The pacing issues that I'm specifically talking about, it's regarding how the gameplay progresses. What I'm talking about exactly, so there's a cutscene, it happens as an example. After that, there is actually, you have to go through the enemies and that's that. You just have to go through the enemies, kill them if you want to, or you can just sneaking through. Now, also, a lot of people were telling me regarding the prone mechanic, that when you can prone down into the grass, the enemies will be very difficult for them to spot you. In some ways, it's actually kind of broken. I would even argue to say it's more inconsistent than broken, because there are moments when the enemies do manage to find you, and the other times the enemies just don't see you at all. But I definitely needed to touch on one last thing regarding the pacing issues, so to say, because the game feels very long. There are a few things that you need to be encountering with the different specifics of the story. If you guys did not know, because I'm getting into a spoiler category now. Abby, you play as pretty much 50% of this game as Abby, and you play as 50% as Ellie, and of course some parts of the different characters. Perhaps maybe this is not what people were signing up for, but also it kind of gives a good direction, a sense of a direction of this character, that why you should be kind of caring about them, or at least their journey and how they got to this point. And so maybe you could have some kind of an emotional feel for them. If they die, if they don't, that kind of sort of thing. But I definitely needed to touch on a few other things exactly regarding the quiet moments in this game. I'm specifically talking about your exploration and the adventure, like the sense of the adventure. It's fantastic. It's simply phenomenal. It's a 10 out of 10 on that terms. The gameplay, sense of adventure, and the looting, exploring is an incredible experience. Like especially when you can go up and find different resources for yourself. And there's actually a moment when you actually find a guitar, you can practice any sort of a tune that you want. And you pretty much create the music all on your own, however way you want. And it's incredible how it works. It's very, very well thought through. I personally think that's very incredible. This is a little bit perhaps in ways of controversial. I don't yet know if it's very forced, but in some ways it is. I'm talking about SJW and that kind of a approach in this. Because Abby, as you guys might know, a lot of people thought at first that she was a trans. She's obviously not, but yet she's also so buffed. But also, why can't women be buffed too? Like, there are masculine women out there that like to go to gym and work on themselves. It's understandable. A lot of people hate this character in terms of what she did during the story. I'm gonna get into spoilers, heavy spoilers mind you. Joel dies with a golf club by her hands. And then we pretty much have to experience her journey through. Nobody wanted to play as her. And that's why everyone absolutely despises this character. They despise Abby. In terms of how the acting performed and the voice, in my personal opinion, her voice does not really match as Abby's, how she's kind of a, sort of say, a badass. You know what I mean? Even though she has her own kind of a fears, like she's afraid of heights. Yet that's why she compensates on her masculinity and why she builds. Maybe that's just a bit of a speculation on my part, of course. That nobody really wanted to play as her, but I don't believe that you needed to like her what she has done. Your favorite character from the first game died at the hands of her disrespectfully, and it was pretty much spat on his face as well. Even you get to see that in a moment too. You know, you're not supposed to like Abby. And when you're playing it through, a lot of people are just gonna say, shit story, I don't like her, why do I have to do this, why do I have to play this? That's just the direction the Naughty Dog developers decided to go with. Again, that's a little bit kind of a personal preference if you did care too much about Joel or if you did not. Because there are moments as well, you play as Abby and you kick the shit out of the Ellie. And yeah, you do the other way around too. Again, spoilers, very heavy spoilers, like I already mentioned at the beginning of the commentary. I definitely need to touch on the enemies, right? Low enemy variety. There's not that many. Now again, I didn't expect them to go with a completely different direction and say like, oh my god, there's gonna be fucking aliens. It would not make much sense, right? There are humans, they're infected. There are different varieties of infected that you're already familiar, but technically there's only 2 brand new infected, and one looks like a giant blob of clickers kind of smashed in together and very difficult and tough to kill, and the other enemy is like kind of has a spores that you can pretty much, you know, burn you alive. That's pretty freaky, but still was pretty awesome. They're kind of easy to deal with, and all the rest of the infected are actually back in here, so in the part 2. Now, regarding the enemies as the cult, and basically they are kind of a freak show in some ways. They have different beliefs, religion. You know, a lot of people does not like them, but also there's a nice kind of a tie-in into the story, even though you kind of think, wait, what was the point of all of this? You know, if you play the game, I think you might know what I'm talking about. I definitely needed to touch on this, like I've been talking a little bit about the enemies, and Naughty Dog has been mentioning it even in the marketing specifically, saying that if you kill an enemy, and because they have friends and stuff like that, they will be calling out their names. But they realize that nobody's like, you know, there's no reply, then they'll start to wonder what is happening. So they're gonna search for, you know, for this person last location that they've seen. But that kind of a mechanical innovation, so to say, is not very well executed, to be honest with you. All they do is like, oh, Mark, where are you? Where are you? And you just like, you know, you can use this to your advantage when it comes to your line of fire. You just take fire and, you know, with a silenced pistol, a bow and arrow, it depends, of course. That's not exactly executed very well. I'm only mentioning this because it was heavily marketed in the videos for The Last of Us Part 2. I don't think it's very well done either. Now, I definitely need to touch on this. I don't understand why this is even in this game, and it doesn't really work at all, and I just never use it. It's the jumping mechanics. Yes, it's been mentioned also in the marketing. Now we finally, because Ellie is so much more agile, she can jump. What? Really? Basically, you press the next button and you manually jump whenever you want to. In The Last of Us, obviously, the first game, there was no jumping. All you did was pretty much have to get to the certain part of the area, and then you can jump up whenever you needed to. I think that would have been a better option, because jumping mechanic is completely useless. You don't use it in the action, you don't use it fighting, you don't really use it at the adventures, except like exploration when you need to get through the tough spots and to the secret areas and rooms. So yes, jumping mechanics is not necessary at all, and should never been even marketed so heavily too. Like I have touched on already about Abby, right? Like I said, that she takes 50% of this game's playthrough. There's some moments in here that just simply does not make sense. In fact, there are some parts of the story that just takes a dive into completely unnecessary direction. Basically, there's like 5 to 6, maybe even to 7 hours worth of content, and the story, I should even say, side story, It was completely unnecessary to be even put here. If this part would have been cut out from the game, I think nobody would have even noticed it. Naughty Dog even stated that they had to cut a lot of content, and you know what, in some ways I think they should have cut out even more, because the stuff about here that there is, it was so unnecessary as well. It just does not correlate with the story at all. It's more like a side quest, and that's really it. Now again, that also may be kind of gathering and getting you ready for the next The Last of Us, well, part 3. That's of course if it does happen. And I'm only taking this assumption because virtual, like a certainty that has happened at the game's end. But yet again, after the debacle and the reputation that Naughty Dog is going through right now, and people are hating on this game, I kind of doubt that we might see The Last of Us Part 3 now. But again, my understanding that the Naughty Dog would want to go with a brand new IP first, then maybe they'll assume that if they want to come back to The Last of Us Part 3 or not. Like I've talked a little bit about more Abby. Okay, she's an unlikable character, like nobody likes her, and I've noticed as well, even with the sort of a heavy emphasis of the SJW and stuff like that, like say women power. I mean, it's all good. I don't care about this sort of things, right? I don't care personally. It's been forced into this game, but that's not right in my personal opinion. Introducing new characters maybe makes sense to a certain degree, but yet I just ignored it at the end of the day. When getting through the game and getting closer to the end, I kind of started like, feeling indifferent regarding Abby. It's not like I was hating about her. I was not really hating her, and at least not anymore. Because the way that her story developed and the way that she had to go through all these difficulties, comings and stuff, I just felt indifferent about her. So maybe it's a positive step of me kind of appreciating Abby a little bit more, but yet also not so much, to be honest. I just feel indifferent about her at the end of the day, and if The Last of Us Part 3 is going to be about Abby and another boy, I think you know who I'm talking about, I'm not going to be getting back. Fuck me, I hope they're not going to go with the Part 3 like that. I definitely needed to touch on this, it's a little bit sidetrack. Incredible customization in the settings of this game for the disabilities and for like disabled people and the issues that they might be having. Maybe they're colorblind, maybe that they have a hard time hearing or seeing or something like that. It's pretty incredible the amount of stuff that this game has for those people. It's very well done. A lot of resources have been put into this game. In fact, that the trophies are no longer have any of the difficulty concentrated trophies. So this is why I assume that they went with, and why you can play this game on everything on easy and get pretty much all the trophies as well. But it's a very nice addition for disabled people, and that's a big praise towards the Naughty Dog with that kind of decision that they have made. I needed to touch on this regarding our overall story. Now, especially coming to the end of the story, it gets very, very dark. Like, you thought that killing Joel in that moment and seeing him in that, state, the story does not get any better in terms of how everything turns out to be. The whole story is very, very dark, and it feels like it kind of antagonizes the player of you trying to play through this game, and kind of gives you incentive of actually not playing it at all. Unless, of course, if you still put in the time and maybe you would ignore a few of the things as well that you didn't really, actually you perhaps even hated playing about this game because of the story. Yet there are still kind of a very nice and thoughtful outcomes, and yet you kind of think about it, hey, what the hell happened here? Because the ambition in this game is incredible, and what the Naughty Dog has tried to go through. And in my opinion, in my book, I really appreciated Naughty Dog taking such a serious risk with this game. And by the terms of things, it didn't really pay out for them, unfortunately. But in terms of the revenue, I personally think they will do just fine. Again, in terms of the dark story and approach, it does feel like it's been very, very much forced into this game, and even unnecessarily so. They could have cut out some parts, they could have actually, toned it down a little bit. But again, In my opinion, I did not mind those things. Since I'm talking about the story specifically, I wanted to touch on the relationship between Dean and Ellie. Okay, now that part, it was not exactly believable, at least not at the beginning of the game. I feel like they might have cut out some parts with the progression of the development between themselves and their relationship. One moment they're like just a little bit of a kiss, and the second moment they're already calling themselves babes and their girlfriends and having sex. But yet, it just felt forced. It didn't feel natural. I feel like the Naughty Dog might have cut out some of the parts for their, more natural progression. I kind of noticed that. Definitely wanted to touch, just mention it at least in here. In terms of the gameplay, it simply is fantastic. Now, it's been built on from the first game, and it's extremely satisfying to play and to have this kind of a journey through. Especially, like I already mentioned almost at the beginning of the commentary, the sense of the adventure and exploration, it's simply phenomenal with that included. The gameplay is even worth a loan of a full price, mind you, just because of how you have this kind of satisfying feel of shooting guys and enemies, taking them down quietly if you want to do so, approaching the infected, and my god, it just was really well done. The music as well is phenomenal. The touch on this game is an incredible feat in terms of the music and the quality production rate. But overall, I wanted to touch on saying that the game is so polished, it's incredible. It's no doubt that this is a PlayStation exclusive games. One of those games, of course, a Naughty Dog game. It's an amazing outcome and how it ended up being. But the story would actually make the whole game kind of a turn on its head. A lot of people, especially giving a flag to Naughty Dog and even the developers for no reason, to be honest, the developers, but yet saying the game's a 0, 1 or 2 out of 10, that's just not the case at all. This game does not even deserve a 5 out of 10. The game doesn't even deserve a 6. In my personal opinion, if I would have had to give her a proper rating, I'm gonna give it a very high score. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. I'm only saying this because every other single thing in this game is a 10, except the story. The story takes it a dive down. Unfortunately, well, that's just the way the Naughty Dog were so ambitious with this creation of The Last of Us Part 2, and that just takes marks up even higher. And it's fantastic games, definitely one of the best Naughty Dog experiences that they have ever created. They're ambitious, it's incredible, the ambition of it, and my god, it was definitely a treat to play. Very dark, sure, the things that, taking a turn for the worst, especially since the things I just did not like, and I was like, oh my god, what is this? That's why I'm giving this game overall, because the good things that included in here, the gameplay, quality, visuals, and the polish, it's just a 9 out of 10 in my personal honest opinion. Well, alright guys, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe. See you guys all later, and as always, have a wonderful day.